Welcome to Conversations for Our Time, podcast number 9 with the Quiet Sun team, George and John. In today's podcast, we are going to be discussing a little bit about foraging and to give a few tips on what is easy to forage, how to use their plants and their medicinal benefits. Plants have been used as medicine for thousands of years and they can be found just outside your door. And most of the time, these things aren't really apparent to us until we kind of open our eyes to something new. And really what we want to be doing is just sharing some of our experiences. I myself haven't been foraging for long. It's only really been since the start of summer, although I used to pick a lot of blackberries. I'm sure most people have had this experience. And really what this is about is just kind of arming people with tools where they can get free food. And, you know, who doesn't like free food? And plus you get an amazing experience along with it by learning something new. And with the looming food crisis, as I'm sure many of you may have experienced or read about or seen prices go up in the supermarkets, this kind of information and knowledge I think is going to be extremely valuable in the years to come. So thanks for listening, and we will kind of just push forward with what we're going to do. So obviously I'd like to welcome George as well.
Hi,
to
everyone.
The podcast. How's it going, George?
Yes, mate, all good. How are you?
I'm good, you know, experiencing a lot of changes, but I mean change is necessary, right? So
Adaptation as well.
Adaptation. And I think right now we are at a precipice, or you could even call it a crossroads. And you know, there's a lot of knowledge that's coming out now that has kind of been lost for quite some time. I'm sure if a lot of people ask their grandparents or great grandparents, they would definitely all have an experience or foraging food. So we'll push forward with the podcast, and I mean, I just want to list a couple of things that we actually have foraged and made, and hopefully that kind of just will give you an example of how easy it is to access these things. So a couple of months ago, me and George went along our local brook and we picked some blackberries. What we also picked was some elderberries, and many of you have probably heard about elderflower syrup or elderflower cordial. The berries are obviously the stage after the flowers come out. And this plant, the elder plant, is brilliant because obviously you can use the flowers and the berries themselves. And the berries are full of things like vitamin A, and they're really good if you make them down into a syrup. But George can obviously just go a bit more into detail. And a few of the other things we did is obviously, as I mentioned, the blackberry. And with the blackberry, you can obviously have the fruit, you can have the leaves and the roots. All of these are usable as medicinal and nutritional aspects of the plant. We also, you do actually get wild raspberries, believe it or not, although you can't really find them that many places. I saw some in a local woodland, and I mean, they're a lot smaller, but they're really, really tasty. And a couple of the other things are rose hips, as I'm sure some of you may know what a rose hip is, pine needles, and willow bark tree. So there's also the mullein plant. I don't really have much of a experience in that. So another thing I'd like to just mention is a couple of experiences I've had. A few months ago, or maybe a month ago actually, on my daily walk, I actually got a phone call from our friend Joe, and he said, "Oh, come out and check out these mushrooms." So this was a local woods, and you know, I was just kind of expecting to see, you know, a variety of mushrooms. and actually managed to maybe forage about a kilo of porcini mushrooms, which were absolutely delicious. Now, his dad has been foraging for 60 years, something like this. And I mean, it's a pretty amazing skill to be able to identify mushrooms and know what's good to eat, know which ones are going to kill you, know which ones may be toxic or hallucinogenic. And, if we go back hundreds of years, our ancestors would have been foraging mushrooms all the time. And mushrooms are a great source of nutrition. And obviously they can bulk out stuff. And the great thing about mushrooms is you can home cultivate them. So, those those wild foods that you can do that with are really, really valuable. So next up, just going to kind of throw it over to George and just see what he wants to talk about. And we'll go from there. So George, would you like to kind of share your experiences and your research?
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. It's funny you say that. I mean, we haven't been doing foraging for long at all. Really, only it was this season that we started to get into it a little bit. And
we both got the same book, haven't we?
Yeah, we got the same books. I'm going to read out. I got a couple of different books to you, but you gave me one, which was nice of you. Thank you.
No worries, man.
And so I know, I do know a lot about health. I research a lot and I read a lot of books and the nutrition side. But this season, this year, we were both focusing on growing food. And that took up a lot of our time.
And trying to stay sane.
And trying to stay sane in this just inverted world. But one thing we haven't cracked yet is properly foraging. We really need to go out there and start learning and actually getting these plants and actually using them and making more medicine out there. So we got into it a little bit this year, and it's funny. It's funny when you, like, the first one I'm going to talk about is elderberry, and we made a syrup, didn't we, out of that, and then you just notice that they're actually everywhere. It's just mad, right? And you don't really notice it before.
Yeah, no, you don't. This is the interesting thing, George. I just wanted to quickly mention another experience of foraging. I'm sure most people have heard of sloes or sloe berries. They grow in quite abundance in, a little patch of woodlands quite near where we live. And I thought, I really fancy making some jam. And it's quite a weird thing how these things pop into your mind. And, I'd obviously been researching a bit. So I just got on my bike, went out there, took a couple of Tupperware boxes with me. And the good thing about sloes is, because they're bitter, birds don't eat them. So it's a brilliant thing because you can pick these things. So I went out and I probably picked, a couple of kilos. I've still got some in the fridge actually. And just looked on YouTube, looked for how to make sloe berry jam. And there was one with sloe berries and apples. And it's my first time ever making jam. A lot of this is very new to me. So, but I'm just kind of, just really getting involved. Anyway, I've made about 4 or 5 jars of it. And everyone's just said, it's great jam.
I haven't tried it yet, but
it's the first time I've done it. And it's the way this woman explained it, it was quite cool. You don't need an experience.
It's such an accomplishment, isn't it?
It's a great accomplishment. And out of that, what you do is, the greatest thing about foraging is, one, it's free. Yeah, I mean, I've had to pay for the sugar to make the jam, but one, it's free. Secondly, you can reuse jars that you've bought at the shop. So that's another thing. And thirdly, you get to share it with people. I mean, that third thing is really the most important.
It's the community thing,
exactly. You get an experience out of it, but when you share it with someone else and you tell them about your experience, what you actually basically do is you're not telling them to do it. You're just saying, have a taste of it. And you don't know what kind of inspiration that will be to someone. Maybe, they might ask you the question, oh, where should you do it? How should you do it? And so I think that act of giving is really quite important. And this isn't to make any judgment, but I think society seems to have kind of lost its way in this regard, I think, is this whole community spirit. And everyone can give something in their own way. It doesn't necessarily have to be to make jam. But I think just the experience itself. And, you can scale this up and you can have a community that goes out foraging. I mean, that's pretty cool, isn't it? And this is definitely becoming more popular. But I just wanted to share that experience because it really kind of, I gave some to my dad and some to my brother and a couple to a few other people. And it was just great positive feedback. So,
well, I do the same thing. I make a lot of alkaline cookies and blueberry muffins, and I give that to my niece. I didn't quite forage those, but it is something when you cook it yourself and you're sharing it out, because you're doing a community thing. You're literally doing what our ancestors did, But when you go out foraging, you're really connecting to nature. You're doing what nature kind of is there to serve us, and we're using what nature grows. And to grow something from seed, like John, you grow it, it turns into a vegetable or a herb, and you use it or you dry it and you start cooking with it. It's just like such an accomplishment, It's just like you've done that yourself. You've taken care of that plant from baby to a mature plant, and you've done it yourself. You've taken care of it with the right amount of water, the right amount of heat, sun, however you're looking after it. But this is what we really believe. This is what life is about. Our dream is to have a community one day so we can do this. And when you make something like jam, like you've described, John, and we make bread, I mean, that's pretty much could be a staple food in the future, really. When times are a bit harder.
Oh, definitely. And I think just having what these kind of experiences give us, it's like growing food. In my opinion, what you're actually doing at the deepest core is reinforcing or reigniting those things that are very natural for us to do. Up until very recently, 150 years, maybe even 100 years, most people were foraging, they were growing their own food. It's only since the industrial era, or really, I mean, the industrial era is too broad a subject, but it's since we've been coerced into the cities that we've lost this connection. Because, when you surround people with concrete, even these tiny little parks, okay, there might be some life in there, but, people kind of just use these parks to relax. That disconnection between us and nature is becoming bigger and bigger. We probably mention this in every podcast, but I think it's really worth just talking about this. This isn't about it being anyone else's fault, because I'm now done blaming people, anyone. I don't want to do that anymore. What I want to do is to just share with people that actually that connection is something that we can work at every day. Even if you live in a city, it's still something you can do. And even if you meditate on this, or you just listen to stuff, natural sounds on YouTube, they all help to reconnect us back to the source of it all. And whether you believe that's God, the Buddha, any of the other manifestations that come out of that, really, it's a connection back to nature, because that's what we can see, So I think the idea of going out foraging, growing your own food, it's not just about connecting with nature. What you get from that is you're going back to your roots, and you gain power from that. I think that's really important. And when you realise your power, you realise that most of the things that are done for us, we can do ourselves, and we get a better outcome. Because it's like in permaculture, a yield is limitless. And what it means by that is when we talk about yields, we talk about a product. But yields come in all sorts of different shapes and forms. You know, a yield is a feeling. A yield is more time with people, right? You know, and so when we create something, how much of it do we waste? How much of it can we recycle and repurpose? And if you look at foraging, or just the natural environment, which is where foraging takes place, is there is no waste. Everything just goes back into the system. And us humans have disconnected ourselves. So we're kind of being observers of this particular phenomena, nature, but we can't truly understand it until we get out there and we get involved.
And this is what we're going to do more next year, foraging. But with the first, I think the first one we did was elderberry syrup. So, you know, you can forage your own, because as I say, they're just, once you know, they're just absolutely everywhere. So we foraged our own elderberries. There's loads in our areas, and we made a nice alkaline recipe because I like my alkaline stuff. All we did was get 1 cup of dried elderberries. I mean, you got loads of elderberries, haven't you? You just left them to dry, so
That's
you can
it,
use
man.
that later. Yeah, 2 cups of distilled water or spring water, and you just add an inch or two, if you want to, some ginger. Bring it to boil, let it simmer or steep for a while. People do it differently. But you might want to let it simmer for 30 minutes or steep for 45 minutes. Just see how you go. Whatever works for you, but whatever you do, don't eat them because we all know it's poisonous. And once you're done, you know what we did is we added. You can add agave or coconut sugar. I think we added coconut sugar to this one. But as things will get more scarce, you probably won't be wanting to add these things. I think just the elderberries and the water will be fine. It just takes away that taste a bit because it's going to be, you know, a bit bitter.
It's got a bit of a bitter edge to it.
Yeah, but so you don't have to put those extras in. It just makes it more alkaline and more healthy. But as usual, I'll put all the links to everything I'm going to talk about underneath, so you can all check out the videos and the relevant information. But that was pretty simple, wasn't it? That was, you know.
Yeah, man. It's a lot of these things are not difficult. I mean, and they're cheaper. You know, and I think personally, and this is just my opinion, of course, but this isn't about action, and this is about people's psyche. You know, that we live in a one-click world, right? But we're also one click away from potential disaster. And we are definitely not catastrophists. You know, I believe one of the guys we follow said, he's a great diamond from Oppenheimer Ranch Project, said, I believe everything's going to shit, but it will all be okay. And I think that's a really good middle way, because things are going to change so rapidly that people will not, a lot of people won't even see it before it's too late, because they're too busy looking at their phones, because we've all been conned into thinking that the answers for happiness are in our phone, right? But we all know that's bullshit. And essentially the only way that we can get through these hard times and overcome the obstacles that are going to face us, both climatic and societal, is to reconnect and get your friends to reconnect. You know, I mean, we're now heading into the next few months that you can't really forage. I mean, there's still a few bits you can pick and you can get, but most of it's gone. But, you know, I urge people, or just encourage people, it's not even urging, it's just to do a bit of research and see what you find out. You know, think about the things that you like eating, and a lot of these things you didn't even think existed or exist out in nature, and they're nearer than you think as well. I mean, even things like chamomile. You know, chamomile grows wild everywhere.
Yeah, lovely.
And it's great in tea. I've got you do get wild mint, but mint. I mean, I've got a lemon balm plant out there.
Yeah.
It's so nice, man. You can get wild garlic. There's all sorts of different things, and so you know, it's a new skill to learn. But if you think about it, when we're in our jobs, most of us will learn a new skill at some point. Yeah, whether you start a new job or you've got an old job and you know systems change, or you get some kind of new opportunity. But things are always there to challenge us. It's just about changing our perspective to how important you think it is. And the thing is, most people don't think it's that important because they don't understand the full gravity of the situation we're in. But it is starting to pick up, and more people are starting to get interested in this type of thing.
There are. I've noticed that within the movement that I'm in, the truth movement, and people are growing their own food more. I saw last year, people are going out there foraging themselves and getting books and sharing the knowledge. We really are getting back into it, because I think people know subconsciously they're going to have to do this.
Yeah.
And I don't want to freak anyone out, you know, I don't want to put doom and gloom, but, you know, food will be scarce. That is it, you know. Back in the Dalton minimum a couple of 100 years ago, that was a food scare, and people were, you know, there were food shortages because of crop failure. It's real, and it is happening now. And as I said on my podcast, Unveiling the Truth, we're probably in the Dalton period right now, because there's massive crop failure around the world. So people are getting into it more, being more self-sufficient. And people have already probably been doing this for way more years than I have. But, you know, as you mentioned before, John, blackberry roots, fruits and leaves, they're a popular one, and people have been doing that for a long time. So I thought it would be good that I'd mention that a little bit here. So it's really, this one's really easy, and probably the most, as I say, most of what everyone is already doing. So blackberry roots, fruits and leaves. I love blackberries. I froze a lot last year. I foraged absolute loads. And there is an abundance near my allotment, and, you know, I just picked what I want, basically. It's full of vitamins, full of minerals, and different antioxidants like anthocyanins. They are type of flavonoid, which gives them that colour. The young leaves and the young shoots can be even eaten raw or cooked, it's up to you. And they are medicine. They have the compound, they call it tannins, which gives them their astringent properties. And the leaves and the roots have been used medicinally in the Native Americans, the Cherokee tribes. It's very good for upset stomachs, diarrhea, swelling and inflammation of the joints. The leaves are good for wounds and cuts, insect bites, that sort of thing. And you can also make a nice syrup from the roots, leaves and berries as well. So another one that's awesome. You don't just actually eat the berries. There's more to it, you know. Another one, as you mentioned earlier, John, raspberry. But not only that, raspberry herbal leaf tea. You know, another good one. That's another popular one. Obviously, you know, you can have it dried or fresh. So many benefits to this as well. I just love nature. Nature is the best, really. But, you know, it helps with functioning of the white blood cells. You need that. You need the immune support. It can be used as a natural laxative as well. I prefer Cascara sagrada, but I'm not not be that easy to get in the future. So raspberry leaf has potassium to protect against heart problems, helps with arthritis and gout, and lots of antioxidants. Helps with skin as well. One thing I'm also surprised about is a lot of these plants help with skin. Lots of these wild plants, but suppose, you know, it's an important one because lots of people's blood are poisoned, right? They won't automatically show, but when you get bad skin, and I've suffered skin all my life, and I'm still trying to crack that one, it's because of blood poisoning, and the kidneys not feel very well, and that's what happens. But there's a lot of medicine out there that nature gives you for skin. It's just amazing, I think. But another one, willow bark tree. You can make a nice tea out of that as well. You know, it's definitely been used as a survival medicine, as an aspirin. I just think that is so cool. It's really simple. You just peel it off, peel the bark off. It has salicin, I believe that's how you pronounce it, which is an anti-inflammatory, pain and fever reliever. Just 1 cup of willow bark, 3 cups of clean water. I think you need to drink a lot of this to get the full effect, apparently. Like 750 millilitres up to 1,000 millilitres, but I wouldn't drink it all at once. I'd drink it throughout the day. But you just boil it for 10 minutes, steep for 30 minutes, and boom, you're done. Another good one, another simple one. Another good one is rose hips, another wild edible. The petals are edible as well. So after the blossom dies away, you're looking for the seed pad that grow on the plants, and then you'll find the rose hips. So wait until the leaves and blossoms are finished, and apparently they are much more sweeter after frost. And this one amazed me when I learned about it. It's got lots of vitamin C in it, and you get a lot of vitamin C out there in nature, but this one you get 20 times more in rose hips compared to oranges, so it's a real good one. You also get your vitamin A and vitamin E, and if you've not done it before, I'll stick a video in there as well, and it was a good one, I felt. But you've got to take the seeds out, so watch the video. And you can use rose hips fresh or dry, but I think we're going to have to get used to drying a lot of these anyway, these wild edible plants, and saving them. So you can do lots with rose hips. You can make jelly, you can make jam, proper survival food. But you can also use it for seasoning, salad dressings, ice cream toppings, just loads, you know. Just be creative, I'll say, you know. For a nice cup of tea, just a couple of tablespoons, but less if they are dried, because obviously the dried are more potent and more concentrated. So steep in boiling water for 10 minutes. That's an easy one as well, isn't it?
Yeah, man.
So
very good.
Yeah. Another one, good one, is the mullein plant, Verbascus thapsus. I don't know if I pronounced that right, but this it's another medicinal plant that's been used for thousands of years. The leaves are soft and fluffy. The flowers spike up to about 6 feet, so it's easy to spot in the wild. It's really good. It's really known for the lungs.
Okay.
You know, so another good one is for the skin as well, and can be treated as a poultice. So I think I've not used a poultice before, but it's like you just use a moist cloth, I think, and you just use whatever herb to help an injury or an inflammation, that kind of thing. But this herb is good to make into a tea. Can be dried, can be smoked, used as a decoction in oil, eardrops, and funny enough, it's used as toilet paper.
Oh wow!
Yeah, mullein is also known as cowboy toilet paper.
Brilliant.
Boom.
Brilliant.
So this plant is just amazing. It's it's on the SABI list as well. So it's one to look for when foraging in hard times. It could really save your arse.
Indeed. Yeah. No pun intended, eh?
But yeah, it's a good one. It's a good one. And yeah, talking of jam as well, you mentioned. I wanted to quickly mention the Scandinavian famine. I don't know if I sort of read about it in Anita Bailey's book, Cold Times. I don't know if you remember reading that.
Yeah.
That bit though, but I wanted to mention it because they used bark to help make bread. So it was in the 18th, 19th century, so the Dalton minimum time, but probably at other times as well, other times of famine, you know, when the grand solar minimum hits. So they put pine bark into bread though because they didn't have enough flour. So it's the innermost layer that you want, which is called the phloem. So you'll need to cut it with a good bushcraft knife. So I'll stick my link in for the podcast we did on bushcrafting and the tools that we recommended. So basically, you scrape it off. It's like wallpaper. It's the white stuff that you want. So, but then you dry it for a couple of days. And what they used to do is to put it in a bag, like a cotton bag, and then they broke it up in bits with a hammer. So they used to just smash it up. But it was the best they could do, in those days. So best harvesting time is in spring when the juices are really flowing. But I guess you need to do it, whenever. But we might need to do this in the future. So doing it in the old ways, doing it in the old style. But just be careful using the tools. As I say, it's easy to cut yourself, trust me. But I wanted to mention that because that's how they did the bread in back in those days. But it's just to give people an idea, really, about foraging. We're not here to overwhelm anyone. It's just a place to start, really, just to take the small steps, and there's plenty to learn. It's plenty of time to learn all this stuff still. As I say, the Quiet Sun team are by no means experts at this foraging, as we said earlier, but we're learning, and we're really going to get into this next season. We've got the relevant books, and I'll put some links in for that. So it's just about learning, isn't it, really?
Exactly, George. And I think, as I said before, we don't want to be saying to people, the world is going to end and we've got no hope. Really, we're here just to help people or give the people the benefit of our experience and our journey so they can join us as well. And, I've foraged maybe 10 times in the last year, but it's 10 times more than I was last year. So, and I've learned a lot more. I've learned to make certain things, and that has actually increased my sense of hope. And I think this is really important. There's two types of hope. There's the hope that you have in that someone else is going to come and save you. And there's the hope that you actually have within yourself that you can overcome any problem you want. None of us are, well, most of us are not limited. And even those people that may be limited by some physical situation or a mental situation, I'm sure they'll know someone that can help them as well. And this isn't just about foraging food. This is about, again, like growing food. It's about community. It's about sharing. This is how we are going to mitigate against the coming changes. And if we do that, then, many of us are going to be able to not just survive, we're going to be able to thrive. So I think that was really good, unless you've got anything else to mention, George.
Just the books that I got and I like. I've got Self-Sufficiency, Foraging for Wild Foods, Foraging Pocket Guide for All Seasons from Britain's Woods, Meadows and Riversides. And it just goes into more details with it. Another one that I haven't got but a friend told me about is Food You Can Forage by Tiffany Francis. But that looks like a good one. What was the books that you've got, John?
Well, that's basically, I've got the Wild Food Foraging Pocket Guide. That's the only one I've been looking at recently. I've also got a book called Edible Mushrooms. That's by Jeff Dan. That's a brilliant book. I mean, you've got about 300 different types of mushrooms. So that's just important, you know. I mean, really the best thing to do is go out and buy books, because we don't know, you know,
when the grid's going to go down.
when the grid's going to go down, or when there's going to be power outages, and what you're going to do then. You can't connect to the internet. So getting something tangible that you can hold in your hands will be a valuable asset. It's like seeds in the next coming 5 years. If you don't want to be part of the digital economy, seeds are going to be the currency. You will be trading in seeds. You'll be trading seeds for other goods, because people will know the inherent value of the seeds themselves. Because what seeds represent is hope. They represent the next generation. They represent nutrition. They represent medicine. You know, they are everything. If you think about it, everything on this planet has come from a seed. So, you know, whether you want to call that the sperm or, you know, whatever it is. So yeah, these things are really important. And really, yeah, that's just we wanted to share our experiences. And as George said, we're far from being experts, but we are passionate and really kind of motivated to learn as much as we can about as many different things as we can. So that's great. Thanks for tuning in, guys. And obviously we will be making another podcast soon. You can check that out, as well as our crowdfunder as well. And just to kind of give you guys an update, we are still going ahead with our composting business. We are just obviously focusing on building the foundations, and that we plan to have that up and running beginning of next year. We're just looking at acquiring land and also some kind of support, so we can push forward, and we're just kind of expanding our networks and the infrastructure. So that will be coming soon. So please do watch out for that. And obviously, if you like these videos, then all we really want is for you to share. That's it, just to share this knowledge and get people just thinking about these different things they can do. So thanks very much, and we'll catch you soon.
Thanks, guys. See ya.